with due regards, we start with the panel now. We're just waiting for Anushka. Yeah, Anushka has also come on board. And we are almost, we are almost. Dr. Gulshan Rai, good evening, particularly good evening to you, because just because of the previous panel eating up on this panel's time, we've not started. We are not running late. We just 5 minutes plus minus overflow because of the previous panel. So are you comfortable now, sir? Can you hear us and see us?
Yes, Charu, I can hear you. I can hear you. I can see you. Hope the reverse is also true.
Yes, sir. It's perfectly audible, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Hi, Dr. Lavnish Charna, warm welcome to you as well. Hi, Mr. Advait. Namaskar, all of you. Ms. Anushka, it's a pleasure to have you, all of you on board. Now, without much ado, Anushka, you being a time moderator and a flow moderator, you could start and then we'll take over whenever you would signal us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I'm very glad that all of the panel experts could join us for the panel today. So without wasting much time, I guess being in the digital age, we all know the times that we are living in where our data is almost at the risk of being at the breach. Like every day we're hearing news about our data privacy breach or citizens' data being at risk, either at the hand of the big tech or either at the hand of the government. So that's why all over the world there have been personal data protection as the need of the hour. So we have GDPR in the EU, we have California Consumer Privacy Act in the US, and Privacy Act of Canada, and so much like in other different parts of the country, of the world. So as a stepping stone, India has also initiated its own formulations where we saw the table of personal data protection bill in 2019, which is right now tabled in the Lok Sabha in the government of India. Then we have the non-personal data protection, which is also being out for the public consultation round back in the year 2020. So today at the panel, the role of PDP and non-PDP would be talked and discussed about merely in the part of balancing the triad of citizens' digital identity, big tech, and the government. So introducing our chair, Dr. Charu Malhotra, coordinator of Center of E-Governance at IIPA New Delhi. She has more than 30 years of experience in the realm of cybersecurity, digital transformation, e-governance, smart cities, data privacy, and etc. And she has backed several prestigious awards at global level, and the latest being the Global Power Women 2021 and the Global Smart City Leader 2022. So over up to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Anushka. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the lovely introduction. And your introduction probably would come when I'm introducing others. Without many delays, because all of us who are here have understood the bill, we've kind of, broken it to smithers and we've understood it from our lens. Like I'm sure Dr. Gulshan Rai and Dr. Rajinder Kumar have their expertise and experience, which comes from directly policy formulation, realm. And with regard to Advait, I'm sure you've done it more pragmatically, being the think tank of the country, part of the think tank of the country. Dr. Lavnish, all of us know you represent not just IT industry, but a consortium of IT industry and academia. However, for the sake of rest of the audience, it's my duty as chair to not just look into the existing regulation, the legal and regulatory framework. Let's go back a little into the genesis. All of us remember that data protection in India was is loosely constructed in IT Act, and especially the IT Amended Act, which was 2008. Where, if I'm correct, sections 43A and 72A of the Act had defined sensitive data as something similar to as personal information may be prescribed by the central government. Now, that was what I would say with the most loose connotation of personal sensitive data. IT Rules 2011 issued then guidelines that we would follow WIPO regulation of defining this term sensitive data. Then what we realized was that the Act totally fails to mention that when enterprises store their data, or the questions about their liability in case of a breach is done, and the compensations expected to consumers were like very vaguely specified, or they were actually not there. Then thankfully in August 24, 2017, we had this landmark judgment where Aadhaar case judgment, if my audience would recall and my panelists would agree, where right to privacy was defined as the fundamental right under right to life and personal liberty, Article 21 of the Constitution. And then, like Anushka also pointed out, we have this PDP, which could be hopefully addressed in monsoon season, a bill which should soon become an act. The whole country is awaiting it with bated breath. And then we also have non-PD, PD, which is talking about, creating innovative spaces for startups and for, SMEs, if I could say. So with all this happening in our country, the need of the hour is now to focus on the core, the nuclei of the ecosystem, which is citizen. So how do we safeguard citizens' data from two sides? If you look at it, citizen is like in a tribe where citizen is in the center, and on one hand we have government, on another hand we have big tech, and then an outcome of citizens consortium is startups and SMEs. So how do we ensure that the interest of each is defended with special reference to citizens, and probably some liabilities or expectations from government, for where we want Dr. Gulshan Rai and Dr. Rajinder to bring in their perspective. Very recently, there was a small relief which was announced in IT Rules 2021, which talked about some kind of social media regulation and interventions. But now we need to look into it, whether this was really a relief, whether the whole ecosystem will work correctly or not. So all these aspects, okay? So now, first and foremost, before we go ahead, it's like as a chair, I would introduce Dr. Gulshan Rai, whom all of us remember as the first National Cybersecurity Coordinator for Government of India. But that is not his only, credibility. Sir holds an MTech and doctorate degree and has more than 35 years of experience in all aspects of IT. I remember when I was growing up as a fledgling in the industry, the first person from whom I learned networking and the basic concepts of installing that in an organization was Dr. Rai himself. Sir is exposed to various aspects of e-governance, cybersecurity, cyber laws, and also other aspects of policies and implementations. Thanks a lot, sir, for joining us, and we hope next time ISB would be more attentive towards the, the connectivity issues and the user friendliness, UI and UX of the system. Anyway, now we move on, and it's my humble duty, Ishita, please. It's my duty to introduce Dr. Rajendra Kumar, who is Additional Secretary METI. And sir, we have learned a lot under your leadership, not just in these years, but I think for decades together. Particularly, sir has international economic development experience. He is actually an international economic development professional, has an adequate, obviously, exposure of designing, planning, and implementing public policy. Sir has worked a lot in ICT for development and has more than 27 years of experience. Sir is an IAS officer, a very eminent one for that. And he's held several prestigious positions at various parts of federal levels of government. And sir is currently serving as Additional Secretary METI and is steering the digital transformation in governance spaces. Sir, thanks a lot, and thanks for agreeing to join us despite your tight schedule. Moving over to representation from IT industry, Dr. Lavneesh Chandna, who's currently Vice President and Head of Government Affairs, Asia Pacific and Japan, working presently at SAP. Sir is looking after the main public policy formulation and thought leadership engagements of SAP, particularly with government and other stakeholders. Sir is also responsible for strategic public sector business support. And I think with my own experience and exposure to Dr. Chandna's impressive work, sir blends practice and industry and academia very well. Thanks, Dr. Chandna, for being with us and as always giving us your insights, which are culmination of these three aspects. Thanks a lot. It's a pleasure to introduce Mr. Advait Pelapu from Medianama, who's currently a journalist there. He has covered various aspects of financial sector and data protection issues for the last 4 years, with publications from Bloomberg Quint and Business Standard. They're like epitome of perfection, we know, in journalism. Advait, we expect from you not just a whiff of fresh air, but the actual gust of fresh air, a very, very unbiased, analysis of the thing. Thanks a lot for being with us. And last but not the least, my pleasure to introduce Ms. Anushka Bilwar, who's currently a student of Stirling University and is also working as a freelance policy debater and practitioner, and if I could say social media activist, with probably 4 years of experience, which I think amount to 8 years because she works double shift. Thank you, Anushka, for being with us. Now, sir, my first and foremost question is, because now here I must share with my eminent audience as well as my panelists that my both the experts from in government, Dr. Gulshan Rai and Dr. Rajendra Kumar, have consented to be here despite their times, and both of them have to leave early. So my first two questions without particular order are addressed to first to Dr. Rajendra Kumar, because he brings in to us the guarded expression of Government of India. He brings in to us the latest thought process there. So Dr. Rajendra Kumar, my question to you, sir, do you think PDP is actually or adequately mitigating the data privacy risk, which a country which is developing, which is diverse like India is doing? Sir, my concern is when DPS, etc., have been stipulated or regulated in PDP, do you think my citizen would either have time or inclination or awareness or sensitivity to use this to their advantage? So is their data really protected? Can they trust us? So that's my first part of the question to you, sir. And my second part of the question, because I want to hear you more, so my second part of the question to you is, how do you think imposing restrictions on big tech will help to regulate the free market practice? Should we do that or should we not? So these are my two questions. They could come back to you anytime you want again. But over to you, sir. I'm muting myself. Thank you. Dr. Rajendra Kumar.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Let me first begin by saying that the PDP bill in its present form, that is the first comprehensive attempt by the government in our country to really put privacy in the digital world at the centerpiece of the entire debate. When we talk about big tech, when we talk about data handling, when we talk about our IT economy, so far, we have not made any such comprehensive effort. This is the first such effort. And the bill presently, as was mentioned earlier, is in the parliament, and we hope that it can become an act soon. This bill seeks to address the privacy concerns of personal data for the citizens through the most contemporary formulation of the entire framework. We have taken the learnings from experience around the world, and this law actually, the proposed law distills all the latest thinking, the most cutting edge framework that one can think of in terms of dealing with privacy. So when we talk about protecting citizens' privacy, I am confident that this meets the requirements that we have in mind, especially in the context of the Supreme Court judgment that was there in the Potosami case, and also the requirements of our constitution in terms of ensuring that the citizens' data is handled, free expression is also dealt with in the way that our law provides for. The main purpose and of this act, of this proposed act, which we hope it will bring, is to see India in the overall global context of a nation, as a nation, which meets the privacy norms adequately. So this adequacy provision, which is there as a feature in some other laws, particularly the EU GDPR. So they talk about adequacy norms in other countries when they allow their own firms to do business with the IT firms in those countries when their data is being transferred. So we hope that by having this legislation, that requirement would be fulfilled, and our IT industry would benefit greatly, because then this entire data handling in India would be based on this very sound legal foundation, and all the apprehensions that the other countries may have in allowing Indian firms to do business in their countries in the digital world, that would be addressed. So that's a major benefit that we hope it can bring to the Indian IT industry. For the Indian citizens, as you mentioned, this would be really helpful in ensuring that the data of persons like you and me are handled through a systematic legal framework. At present, as you are aware, the only act that we have is the IT Act, which has provisions for handling of sensitive personal data. But then those are not really able to meet the requirements of the current day and current age. So this is going to address that requirement. And when you, the second part of the question, let me also try to address. When we talk about big tech, I think this is for the benefit of both the citizens and the industry, because it provides for the first time a very well thought out legal framework for the citizens to be able to expect how their data would be handled by both the government and the private sector when they collect data from the citizens by providing them with a proper advance consent mechanism. So that is one of the key features. The data handling, there is a purpose limitation. The data that is being collected, that can be used only for the purpose for which it was collected. Then once that purpose is over, then the data can no longer be used. That's what the Act provides for. So I think with these latest concepts in privacy protection and data handling, it would be in the interest of both citizens and the IT sector players to see this new legal framework with the right kind of mindset that it deserves, in the sense that it's not intended to be adversarial to the IT industry. The intent is to facilitate data handling in a responsible way, in an accountable way, and this framework also talks about a regulatory mechanism for ensuring that. So the idea is not to put any obstructions in the way that our IT economy is developing, or in the way that it would really hamper their functioning. But the idea is that it will provide them with a systematic framework for handling of citizens' data. And for the citizens, it would allow them to see how their data is being used, who is collecting their data, who is sharing that data with whom. So all this, which is not possible now because of lack of such a comprehensive framework, that should become possible with this new law coming into force. So I think let me conclude at this point of time. I would be happy to really answer any further queries. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. In fact, something was news for me as well, that you would allow citizens to collect data and they would have, some say in that. Was like, I don't know how I missed the fine print, but yes, sir, that's very interesting. And it's reassuring for both the IT industry as well as citizens, as have been rightly pointed out by you. So that's very interesting. Any candid observation from my moderator, Ms. Anushka Bilwar?
Ma'am, if you would allow, then I do have certain set of questions, but I do feel like that probably Gulshan sir would be able to answer it pretty well. So if you allow me, with your due permission, I would like to propose a set of questions.
Yes, don't say he would be the only one, but yes, you can direct your questions to Dr. Gulshan Rai. All of us can, but let Dr. Gulshan Rai take over. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. Hello, sir. Good evening. So, sir, looking at your expertise and your years of experience, I had a question regarding the PDP Bill 2019. Sir, in Chapter 8, specifically Section 35 to 40, which reads as that the power of central government to exempt any agency of government from application of the Act and exemption of certain provisions for certain processing of personal data. So, sir, these are some of the exemptions which are provided to the government of India, or to, as we say, the state. So, sir, do you feel that, I mean, in your opinion, this blanket which is given for to the state, does this leads to any form of surveillance, and how is it in the citizens' interest? I would really like to know your opinions on it.
Shall I speak, or Charu, you have to say something?
No, sir. आपके.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Please, sir.
I mean, am I audible very clearly?
Yes, sir. Very much audible and visible both, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Charu, and thanks all the distinguished participants who are with me in this session today. I was listening to Ms. Malhotra's initial comment very interestingly, and on which one line was also meant by Dr. Rajendra Kumar also. Let me put the correct perspective to do that, because I drafted that Information Technology Act when nobody knew what is the legal implication of the information. And that too in 1998, I started that, and first act came in 2000. The rules which Charu was pointing out the gaps and holes in that rules was done in 2011. And that time there was no concept of the privacy and the concept of the technology which we are dealing with. Social media was not that kind of a powerful tool which we had. I wish Charu should have, and I often ask the political leaders also, that someone should compliment me that I thought of those sections in 2005 and 2006, which helped Dr. Rajendra Kumar to block 259 or 260 apps in 2020. The president of the US was struggling to, block TikTok, and till today they have not been able to do. I thought someone should back me up, but rather I find that Charu is castigating me, that this act, this rule, that kind of a rule. I think we should understand that the Information Technology Act was not connected with the privacy. I don't agree with Charu. The sensitive personal information in the rules were defined. It nothing to do with the WTO. Nothing to do with the WTO. There is no reference of WTO in the rules or in the act there. I don't know from where Ms. Malhotra has picked up those words. I'm totally surprised. I will go once again. Maybe I'm now a superannuated person, so I might have lost my sense of memory, but I will go through that once again there. But I don't find anything. See, the purpose of the act was to put evidentiary value, and we included those crimes which were necessary and specialized in those days connecting with the act there. And those crimes have been expanded in 2008 and thereafter. Some issues has a reason that point of a time, and that's why it was thought that Section 43A should be brought in to make the institutions to implement the best security practices so that data is not leaked out. The rules 2011 also provides that the data can be transferred only when the other party has the equal security measure. There was no arrangement, as Dr. Rajendra Kumar brought out the adequacy arrangement in those days. The GDPR came in 2018, and those provisions of adequacy came thereafter. The first time we started attempting to recognize ourselves, there was a different European law over there. So the context of the 2011 and the IT Act is entirely different. This is why Dr. Kumar has explained. This is a law. This is a law which is going to be a domain, the data protection, data privacy kind of thing. It has nothing to do with the security aspect also there. So these two are a separate context. Now let us come back to the question which Anushka asked it. Section 35 to Section 40 are very crucial kind of sections there in the bill, which is going to be converted into the law very soon there. Let us imagine that some internal or intelligence agencies or police agencies, they have a lot of FIR data. They are processing the data. They are inside it. Then income tax is processing a lot of data inside it. It's not nothing to do with surveillance there. The courts are pursuing so many data to take out the cause list there. So, I mean, we need to give some positive, constructive kind of exemptions to certain government departments who are processing the data for their internal purposes. They are not doing for external. They are processing for internal. Imagine, Anushka, I don't know, I'm sure you will, I mean, look at it that if in my house I process my data, in my company I process the data, it will get exempted because I have to do my inside. It's meant for inside, it's not meant for outside here also. So data privacy is the leakage of data outside, not for internal. So I think that is a larger context on which it is there that the exemption of certain agencies for the data processing is there. That's a larger exemption there. But the Section 35 to 40, there are many other aspects are there. The one of the important aspect is there in this era when the IT and the cyber technology is being used. It's an integral part of everything there. It's all convergence of technologies. Terrorists are equally using the technology where you and me and everyone are using for a positive and constructive and efficient purposes there. Now, how do you analyze, how do you project, how do you do a kind of a projection that or prediction or something like that, some terrorist attack is going to happen? Until unless you give them, they let them collect the data, only then they can say. So whenever any incident happened there, everyone started accusing the police or the intelligence security agency. They need to be given certain flexibility to collect the data. But at the same time, we need to look at it that it should not become a surveillance. It should not compromise the freedom of expression of the person. It should not compromise the privacy of a system there. That's what we need to look at it there. Well, the sections which have been 35, 40, I must tell you all that there are a lot of agencies as opposed there, that this should not be the blanket power. Though the bill provides certain guidelines, and certainly police or the government is accountable for whatever action they do. Every agency is accountable. Law is used in a particular sense. Our courts they interfere. There are a concept of PIL and all kind of a thing happens there. But I believe the Parliament Committee certainly seized of this matter. They certainly are going to put certain kind of amendments and modification, which will balance the rights of an individual, so that it is not put to it should not be put as a surveillance, or it should not be misused there. It should be used effectively for the purpose, for the objective for which these sections or these clauses have been put in the bill. I'm very sure about it. I mean, we have a section in the IPC and IT Act there. I don't want to name the sections there. I don't find any misuse. I have been a part and parcel. I don't find misuse there. They have been going perfectly okay. But I mean, I must ask you otherwise also. Tell me anything in this world which is not misused. Maybe, I mean, see, वो हमारे यहाँ बोलते हैं ना, आटे में नमक तो हो सकता, नमक में आटा नहीं हो सकता. That's what we all say.
बिल्कुल सही सर. Sir, that is why you are here. Thanks a lot. You've said something very reassuring, that JPC would definitely put in some checks and balances. Now let us have industry perspective, please. So, Dr. Lavneesh Channa, after what you've heard, both the stalwarts from government talking about the ruggedness, the robustness of IT Act IT Act to begin with, like Dr. Gulshan Rai said, he's pioneer of that act. And Dr. Rajendra Kumar reassured us that everything is right. And then Dr. Gulshan Rai reaffirmed that JPC would definitely look into the well-being of citizens and some kind of checks and balances. He used that word. So I appreciate that. Dr. Lavnish Channa, with your immense years of experience, what is your perspective about PDP and non-DP? I mean, how do you look into it? How do you balance citizens and innovation, this thing from IT industry perspective? And Advait, I want you to be ready with your clause after that, okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Charu. Thank you for inviting me. And it's indeed a pleasure listening to both Dr. Rajendra Kumar and Dr. Gulshan Rai once again. All of us by now have kind of understood the need for the PDP and the NPT. So that debate to me has lived its age. That is not really what is important. What is important, and the way we have done it in India, at least, very collaboratively through extensive public consultations so far, starting from the first report of Justice Shri Krishna Committee to the law drafting, and now the JPC doing extensive consultations. So we have actually gone into much more detail, and as Dr. Rai mentioned, that laws that he thought about in some years back are actually now being used, and that's the foresightedness that probably this process would result in. Now, from an industry perspective, when I look at, right, obviously it's an evolving discipline. All of us agree, and together, government and industry, we are working together. One or two issues like what will industry look at. First major would be the compliance costs. In terms of now, and one is the cost of compliance. Second is the convenience of compliance. Third is the challenges in compliance. Now, if you see, as we have evolved, we have gone ahead and added to some extent regulators, in terms of so I think there is, with this addition, and both the PDP as well as the NPD governance framework report highlight the need for a data protection authority, and so I think there is parallelly there is some scope for simplification and unification of many of these things, which become easier in terms of direct compliance regime for the industry. That's one. Second area from the industry is the whole issue of the product compliance. So when we offer service to products and services to our customers, we need to ensure that those products and services will actually fall in line, whether it was a GDPR or now the India personal data protection regulation. Now there have been extensive discussions on some of these areas, particularly around cross-border transfer, the definitions of and then
localization,
the consent part in terms of use and all. So we are evolving. So from product compliance. Third is the area that I wanted to highlight from an industry is the whole probable impact on the business models that industry have. Whether it's monetization of data or the way the term that you have been using since we started this debate, the big techs. So where are we moving? I think to me, if I have to final shape of the law as it comes, we all obviously will gear up and ensure that all of us work together. I think parallelly, as we gear up for the law, to some extent, creation of an awareness mechanism for the end user in terms of what is going to come to me. Is the PDP applicable? Am I a company registered in India? Am I handling citizen service data? Am I handling this? That probably as a joint effort, because talking about large companies, it's easier. When it comes to SMEs, it becomes slightly more difficult and challenging, particularly around service SMEs. So that to me would be one area where probably it can help in creating a base of acceptance as well as a base of awareness that it can take to. Fundamentally, the collaboration has gone very well so far, and the examples we have seen earlier of the implementation of GST, or in this country we have had the huge similar experiences. So we are moving together. Let's hope together we will achieve the objectives on one side of ensuring the right kind of a framework that Dr. Rajendra Kumar mentioned, and the preserving the interests and the objectives and motives of the industry per se. We are hopeful. Let's see what happens as we move forward.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Channa. Preserving the interest of not just the industry, but the citizens as well. And Dr. Channa, I've been using the word big tech, but a new word which I would now start using before I ask Advait to point out if I'm correct or not is a new word which is like what I would say micro multinationals. Okay, so very soon we would have this one room garage startups, and suddenly they become the fangs of the country, of the world. So that's another word I'm dreading, and I hope it is true for our country, if not elsewhere. So anyway, Advait, now over to you. You've heard both the sides. You've heard government from like the horse's mouth, the big wigs, if I can use that word now. I mean, those who've been in the legal and regulatory framework policy, they've seen enough, they've done it all, they've said it all. And with their experience, they are very hopeful about placing India at like the top, where they're reassuring IT to invest. And of course, IT itself has revalidated. If you heard Dr. Channa, he was very unbiased and candid about the positive ecosystem that is flourishing. However, Advait, I mean, there are certain things which still come to me as an academics. You know, one is like, on one hand, they are monetizing, the companies are monetizing data, okay, to their own advantage. They are creating echo chambers. There's something called as targeted campaigning and targeted marketing. And on other hand, we have these fledgling startups who don't have the first movers advantage. So they have to run from pillar to post for the right data, for the right approvals, etc. So what is your take about the whole system from a very unbiased perspective? And after this, I would then have final word from Dr. Gulshan Rai and Dr. Rajinder, and then we will keep debating on these issues.
So yeah. I think let's take a step back. Firstly, just as a caveat, thank you so much for having me here. It's great to be on a panel with senior government officials that we as journalists have reported on and covered their statements. But I think let's take a complete step back. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt in the 60s and the 50s. Said that you have a Bill of Rights in America, which is your fundamental political rights. He was proposing an economic Bill of Rights, and that was the same thing that Dwight D. Eisenhower, 2 presidents later, had also suggested, but America never implemented that. Today, you would need a political Bill of Rights, an economic Bill of Rights, and a digital Bill of Rights, right? So, as far as the PDP and the non-PDP framework, at least what I'm understanding is. See, firstly, it's good that the government is getting into this, because there's been a global market failure on the one hand to figure out how data has to be governed, both from a privacy perspective as well as from a commercial perspective. And at the same time, there's been a market failure to regulate the big tech companies, right? For 20 years or so, the big tech companies have reigned supreme all over our lives. They've collected data, they've analyzed the data, we've been influenced by their decision making, their algorithms. And so therefore, there is definitely a need for regulations, especially when we're not just talking about criminal issues such as data theft or, what happened with Cambridge Analytica, but even how data is handled within a company, whether they're sensitive to my data, which is personal, versus my non-personal data, which can be used for commercial purposes again. So I think both these frameworks are at least bringing in regulations and are putting a burden on companies saying that your free reign is over. This is the standard procedure that every company, as per certain thresholds, will follow. That is very important, and it's a positive direction. Now, obviously, we'll wait for the JPC report to come out to see what the final PDP bill looks like, whether this bill will include non-personal data aspects on governance of non-personal data aspects, whether the data protection authority will be a holistic data protection authority, or is it just going to be authority that will govern data transfers and data sharing? Will it be given enforcement powers? Will it be given investigative powers? You know, in my view, the data protection authority could be bigger than the RBI and the SEBI, because data flows are much bigger. It's a much bigger market, because you know, you're defining it as data business. In today's 21st century, every business can be defined as data business, right? So how the authority works, I think this whole thing's in transition. It could take a few years before that institution has been bulked up with skills, technology, manpower to be able to enforce the rules that they come up with. So coming to your question about does this bill, do these frameworks address the issue of big tech? I think to the extent that it addresses their ability and the requirements for handling data, yes, it does. So a Google, a Facebook, a Twitter, I think it's very clear now, this sort of global loophole that they found, that they're not really businesses in a particular jurisdiction. They've used that to, you know, for taxation purposes as well. But the fact that, okay, I don't need to comply with Indian law, or I don't need to comply with Burmese law, which happened, you know, a few years ago in Facebook's case, I think that is over. I think they've realized that you have to set up shop in India, and your Indian shop is going to be accountable to the Indian government, as it should. I think the problem is that both the frameworks put commerce over ownership. So I, as a data trustee, as a data custodian, I'm empowered more under both these frameworks than I as the data principal, right? Community, there's a lot of detailing about community ownership of data as a data principal. I, as an individual, it's very sketchy. Yeah, the NPT framework definitely doesn't go into this. The privacy bill, I'm going to hold myself back, because we have to wait for the final bill to come out to find out what it is. So just one example I'll give you, right? The account aggregator framework, which is meant for financial institutions. It will start with banking, right? Which is essentially to say that I don't need to run pillar to post with hundreds of documents saying, hey, mera KYC lijiye. You don't need to do that anymore. You can just do it on a touch of a button. The problem is, it's again, the idea of that system is, how do I, as the owner of that information, give consent to various parties to share my information, as opposed to, do I own this information? I actually don't own the information. The information is still owned by the financial institutions. I have the ability to control its movement. Now, I feel that, okay, it works, logically it works for people like us in the urban elite, who understand, okay, these apps, APIs, we understand how APIs work and all that. But for the majority
Advait, I totally understand. And that is where I wanted you to, you know, kind of bring the beautiful rhetoric to culmination. So you've done it. I mean, that's what I started with, which you picked up. So before we come to you, Dr. Rajendra Kumar, if you are online with us right now, and Dr. Gulshan Rai, Dr. Rajendra Kumar had another meeting at 6:30. Yes, you are there. So great, sir. So Dr. Rajendra Kumar, your final take on whatever Advait just mentioned. Advait also brought in that data principle, which is the citizen himself, probably could be, you know, absolved. Could be absolved is the word I could use, because he is right. The basic, the basic pressure is on data trustee or data custodian. I like that, you know, concept more. And also he talked about citizen being the weakest link in the chain, and yet the most empowered one. You know, weakest because of, as I said, lack of inclination, lack of time, lack of awareness, but the strongest because they should be the real beneficiaries of the monetization of their own data. So, sir, your final word before we would formally bid you adieu, and then Dr. Gulshan Rai would pick up from there, and then we'll have our discussion continued. So, Dr. Rajendra Kumar, for your final word.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Charu Malhotra. So just to respond to the discussion and the points mentioned by the previous speaker, I think in the PDP bill, we have the data principle as a centerpiece of the entire architecture. So there are three entities defined, just to mention from the bill itself. So first, the data principle, which is the citizen like you and me. Then we have the data fiduciary, which collects data after giving you a consent and taking informed consent from the person. And then we have data processor, which could be the entity who is actually processing your data on behalf of the data fiduciary. So the accountability is on the data fiduciary in terms of handling of that data which it collects from the data principals, that is the citizens. And if you see the current legal framework of the IT Act and the other laws, this is the first comprehensive attempt to bring accountability in the entire digital ecosystem in the country. And as I mentioned earlier, the purpose is to ensure that the data governance, data handling can be done in a far more systematic manner based on this legal foundation, which should help the country's data economy, which should help these data principals, that is citizens, to ensure that their privacy protected through measures such as informed consent, then the purpose limitation of the data that is being collected in terms of sharing, how the data is shared with which parties. Also, there is a clause which talks about the rules under which the cross-border transfer of data can take place. So we have not used the word data localization because the intent is not to ensure that everything remains in within the borders of the country. But the idea is that the data cross-border data transfer has to happen as per sound legal principles, keeping the privacy of the individual in mind as the as central to that entire framework. So that's the legal jurisprudence that is emerging across the entire world, and that's what we have adopted. And I'm sure with time to come after the bill becomes an act, we will have legal jurisprudence emerging out of this entire new framework on data protection. And that would help us in really becoming probably the global leader in terms of data governance and data economy. As you know, data is the new fuel for the world economy, and its contribution is going to increase only in the time to come. And it's really the best time for us to think about a comprehensive legislation to ensure that we keep the data protection as the centerpiece of this entire effort. And at the same time, we also make the big tech or even the startups or whatever accountable to this entire system as to how they handle our data. That is the citizens' data. So that's the entire centerpiece of this entire effort. And I'm sure once the bill becomes an act, it would have a very positive effect on both the privacy and personal data, and also in the growth of our data economy, that is in the growth of our digital sector. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks. The fact that you have very implicitly mentioned the checks and balances to avoid digital hegemony is very reassuring. We thank you for your time, sir. So again, all the panelists and on behalf of my participants and the organizers, which are ISB and IPPN, we are just small, part of the whole program they were doing. It's a delight to have a visionary like you and Dr. Gulshan on board. But I would thank Dr. Rajendra Kumar, and sir, since you have another commitment, it's perfectly okay for us. We'll get back to you with the final conclusions. If you can stay, it will be a pleasure, sir. But I'm glad almost all what we had in mind have been addressed. And if the participants have other questions, and if you could come again, it would be a delight, sir. So thanks a lot, sir. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Dr. Gulshan now, I mean, what Advait just mentioned, sir, I know you also have to leave, and then Dr. Lavnish and Advait and Anushka and I would have a field day. Sir, my, next part of concern for you was Dr. Rajendra did bring in that, we have put the data fiduciary as the, he said they are accountable. They are responsible for what the data is being collected from data principals. But sir, as Advait brought out, would our data principal be actually empowered or intelligent enough to put some kind of embargo on data fiduciary, or when my data principal is saying I agree, what is the level of their awareness and their level of jagrukta, if I can use that word, about it? So do you think, is this enough, sir? Sir, second, sir talked about DPA. He said that DPA is like empowered, and Advait, but very, cleverly brought out that DPA probably would not have devolution of power. DPA probably would not have, he used all the know-hows and means and utilities and tools to implement practically. Sir, India is famous for wonderful laws, and we are moving towards better implementations out of experience, but we are still not there. So what do you think, sir, in context of our country, should DPA, like Advait said, be the centralized control? Sir, your experience in IT, cloud has never worked. It's always fog and edges that come to the rescue of decentralized approach that comes. So I think in a country as diverse as India, probably DPA should not be totally empowered. Then the power shifting will happen from big tech towards DPA. So that's my first concern, sir. Second concern is the nature of our country. Our citizens who are on constantly on smart devices with little or awareness, or with kind of naivety, which is totally understandable. Sir, what do you say on that? And then I would ask Dr. Lavnish to give his perspective on the same issue. Dr. Gulshan Rai, please.
Thank you, Charu. Thank you, Charu. I think there should be someone to intervene when Charu is also speaking. The way you intervene to me and my friend there. Charu, I would address this, your question in slightly different manner. We all understand, and the jargon, people, process, and technology, we all understand that. Now, if you look at the people, process, and technology, and you transform this jargon to address your question, what you said it, what technology is giving me is giving me the enablement. Okay, so the law is equivalent to technology in this process that gives me the enablement, that I have enabled the law. Now let us see what else you do. Then there's a process. Process is a process. Process means you lay down the systems, you make the system for rightly to be enforced also. Enforcement need to be defined and brought out in the system there. Process is there. Okay, that's the second aspect which is important in the entire thing. The third is the people who will enable it, who will write the process, who will implement and get the enforcement also. So in general, these three pillars, enablement, process, and the people who will do these things, these are an important issue there. Now, data protection authority, you need to have a single authority. There should be some ownership. I have never seen in any home where our husband and wife both are owners and the house was functioning well together. I don't think, Charu, you also would have seen in your house there. If you and Mr. Malhotra also start functioning two parallel authorities, God knows what will happen to the house, and it happens to anywhere to house also. There has to be singular authority who should be called it. So that's why data authorities are there. But it all depends what rules and regulation the Data Protection Authority brings, which this act provides for. Okay, how those rules and the enablement are implemented, how those are enforced. Okay, data principle has been given the right to give a consent and to withdraw the consent. Okay, the issue with this act, which I find, is that this act is a very, very sophisticated in the sense that very complicated act. There are more than 100 sections, and out of 90% of the sections, you have to write the process, how it will be implemented, and how it will be enforced there. Those are the real meat aspect there, which will make the law successful, or which will create a problem, the issue which you are mentioning it there. You are mentioning it. You are rightly bringing out the issue there. It all depends upon the two factor. How do we about it? The first factor, we have already cast it the die. There could be gaps and loopholes will be there. So we have to look for that we write the processes we write the rules regulation so that the enablement and whatever the issue you are raising, or whatever my friend Anushka raised earlier with me, I think those to be addressed to rules regulation, and that is a very, very complex. And I must also bring out one fact there. It's the sense that India has no privacy kind of a culture. Okay, in the Europe, when they brought the GDPR, there was a European directive. Okay, Article 29 was there, privacy directive was there. So they had certain culture of privacy. In any way, they have a better culture of privacy than Indians there. So we don't have a culture. It's going to be very challenging for us to implement, and maybe we have to learn from the processes there. So in this entire process, because we don't have a culture, we don't have a process as of now, we need to have the proper processes defined by authority. You see, there are data protection officers are there. There is an adjudicating officer there. There is ombudsman systems they put in the enablement, the law frame there. How do we implement? The data protection officer will be enabled. Every company has data protection officer. He will be enabled. He will be the representative authority in that particular company. So most of the issues will be resolved by him there. Authority is not going directly over there. He will listen to the protection officer. So it all depends on how do we weave the entire network. Okay, it's not going to be whatever we are doing it now, whatever has been done, it's only one component which matters only 20%. Less 80% will matter in the other two components which I said. I feel that we have started, we have to work collectively together in a constructive manner. There will be a problem and we need to solve the problem. Maybe, I would request the good job you're doing now, you have to do again and again more frequently. There are more different locations so that there is more awareness in the public and more people come and debate about it, more people come and highlight the issues there, and then we collectively solve.
Thank you, sir. That's interesting and reassuring. Advait has one question for you, sir. But before that, Dr. Lavnish Channa, your take, and then Advait, you could take over and ask Dr. Gulshan Rai. Yes, Dr. Lavnish.
Charu, I am just retired. That's why you are saying that Rajinder Kumar ji, आप जाओ. मैंने आपसे कहा था मुझे भी जाना है यार. मेरे से जो पूछना पूछ लो, हाथ जोड़ के आपसे विनती कर रहा हूँ. मुझसे पूछ लो यार. I have to go. I told you I will not be able to stay beyond 6:15, 6:30. Kindly ask me. I have to go.
Okay.
I have to somewhere.
Okay, sir. Sorry for the faux pas. Mr. Advait, if you have you said you have one question from Dr. Gulshan Rai. Please make it simple because sir has to leave. Yeah.
Hello, Dr. Rai. Just to, earlier you said that this is the data protection bill and data protection framework rather than a cyber security framework. This has nothing to do with security specifically. Do you think there's a need for surveillance reform now that these two frameworks will come into law? Because the lawful interception and monitoring system that requires, home secretaries to sign off on phone tapping, that got broken a long time ago, that check and balance. So do you think there's need for surveillance? Because if you look, adding to the earlier question, which was about the exceptions under national security, public order, or those kind of things, do you think our investigative agencies should be brought under a separate framework or a new surveillance framework that is in line with data protection authority, with the DPA rules or the principles in both these personal data and non-personal data frameworks? Thank you.
My dear friend, you have raised a very sensitive question there. I will not like to answer on this forum there because it's all going on for now ages, this whatever the issue we have raised it. I will only answer in a manner that the whole technology has changed. The concept of surveillance and concept of bringing checks and balance on the surveillance has changed there. Today, whatever you talk about it, the Home Secretary's order, it is done, but your hackers, are they not doing the surveillance without any order there? Everybody is doing it. Every app is a hacker there. Every app comes. You have seen the order of Competition Commission passed yesterday on the WhatsApp there. You must have seen that. If you read that order very categorically, you have no option. You are blackmailing. You are being blackmailed that if you don't say yes, I will not give it to you. So I think that's a larger issue. So if you say the surveillance aspect, all those aspects are had to be seen a different context in the convergence of technology. Mind you, we are not dealing with one technology. We are dealing with the convergence of technology. The artificial intelligence, I don't know when it's becoming a friend and when it becomes your enemy. There, we have so many issues there. So we are just open we don't know the depth of the impact of the technology which we are dealing with, or which we are entered into, the digital transformation we have entered into. It's going to be a very challenging time. And in that process, that's what I was saying. What Charu is doing about questions you are asking, they need to be debated more in a public forum there. Then we can come a solution. If I sit as a government officer, if I sit down and start writing my law and start writing my rules or writing the guidelines, it's going to be difficult. I don't think a single person or authority, whether it's a private or a government, can today attempt to write something which is applicable. They need a wider public consultation there. I remember when I did it, it took a lot of time for me to understand. Every Saturday, Sunday, I used to ask so many people come and teach me there. So it's a challenging job. Today, the things are becoming, you are dealing with the virtual, you never realize what virtuality you're going to deal with. So the entire concept has changed there. And I can assure you one thing there. See, the technology is bringing much democratization in the society there. Okay, whether you like or we don't like, there will not be any dictator, whether it's a China country like China or Russia. You can see what all is happening there. Okay, the Jack Ma, the immediate news around Jack Ma is being blocked. You know that you are a journalist there. Nothing can be withheld in this scenario there. So any surveillance agency, any surveillance organization, or any other one, there will be a reform, there will be a change in the entire system because of the technology there. You cannot withhold anything there. I hope I've answered the question because your question was more theoretical, so I've answered it in a whatever way best I can understand that.
No, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your.
The joy of listening to you is that time flies. You know why I was not letting go of you? Because I have that right on you being your disciple and your this, and plus the fact that you were bringing in very candidly. So I thought the fact that you are not mincing your words, you're in bust of your elements. So that is why we were holding on to you, and we have no regrets on that. But yes, we have regrets that now you have to leave, and all your points have been well taken, and we would definitely round up these learnings and share with all of you, sir. You spare time and you stay a guiding force and a lighthouse for all of us in the country. So thanks a lot on behalf of the panelists.
Advait, can I ask one question to you in a lighter vein, and if Lokesh permits me, and
Sure.
Anushka? You see, total hour was 1 hour. See, whether democracy was followed by Charu in this entire process or dictatorship was followed, then I leave it to both of you to decide about it. How much time Charu took it in 1 hour, how much time given each? She cut me down, the other, my other friend also. So you look at the democracy but dictators. That answered your question, Albeit now? Thank you, Charu.
Yes, sir. Always. Thank you, sir. Dark humor, but it's okay. Thank you.
Charu is my very favorite, affectionate person, so I can take liberties. Thank you.
Thanks, sir, for all your opinions, sir. Thank you. So, okay, now Dr. Lavnish Channa, once both the stalwarts have given their opinion, and especially when Advait raised the question of this need for this new law. I mean, this is indeed, what I would say. This is, I think, out of these 2 days of the conference, this is probably the most revolutionary proposal which is coming through a panel, that we probably need surveillance reform given the new framework. And I would not say that autocrats won't be there. I think now different kind of autocrats would be created. Okay, the fact that Jack Ma went into oblivion is, sir, very scary. Because I'm not on either sides, but I would want to know which side you think should the river flow. So Dr. Lavnish Channa, picking up what Advait asked, are we moving towards 1984 George Orwell, or we need to stop it right here?
Yes, see, frankly, I don't know whether I have a direct answer to your question. Had I got that, Advait would be after me after that. That give me this. I would like to use it. But see, in my view, we also need to give the flow its own time. Also, multiple technologies, multiple dimensions of change, multiple requirements of the SOPs somebody mentioned, multiple requirements of awareness that we need to, that I agree, clicking I agree is now gradually changing, and people are reading before. So there is a natural flow also that we need to give some relevance to, and particularly post COVID or otherwise, this is likely to get further strengthened as we move forward. Now, on surveillance reform, frankly, I'm not the one who can offer the right kind of comments, but from a technology standpoint, obviously, if there is something that can be commented on, but the government officials have already commented on that. But the only point that I have is let's evolve with this as we move forward, right? And in the evolution process, just keep the principles of collaboration, just please to keep the principles of citizen interest, and just keep the principle of a collective benefit and in mind. I think it should be simpler going forward. Now, somebody can brush it aside saying this is too theoretical, very easy to say but very difficult to achieve. But that's where lies the fruit. That's what I would say.
Dr. Channa, I agree with you. Let the citizens themselves decide, and for that, probably the corporate world like yours, or academia like ours, or think tanks like the one on the panel, Medianama, or researchers like Anushka and stalwarts have to converge together. So we are actually moving towards a multi-stakeholder collaboration environment where citizens should be equal participants. So that's what we have to do. When I look at the watch, I think I'll have to snatch the liberty of anybody else on the panel having any further discussion. So if there is any question from the audience, they could unmute themselves on the chat. As there's nothing on the chat. And if there is no hand raised, I would just sum up by what already discussed. Okay, Sangeeta, if you are there, can you garner if there is any question?
Ma'am, I'm here. No, there are no questions in the chat.
Great. So presuming there are no questions, thanks, Sangeeta. We would just wrap up by what has been said. So the last word was actually Dr. Channa and Advait, and I won't say myself, but definitely the two experts who visited. So we were actually converging. If you saw when we started, we were all on different threads, but now it seems to be kind of a knitted framework where we have understood self-regulation is important, where we've understood citizen stays the core target beneficiary, where we've understood that devolution of power should come to DPA and data principle should be absolved. And I always maintain that that privacy by design in the setup would happen. We also realize that cross-border flow is to be regulated more meaningfully. Of course, not limited by data localization concepts, because that has its own limitations. Capacity building was brought out by Dr. Gulshan Rai himself. We also understood that enforcement and investigation power of DPA probably should be more than RBI, which Advait brought out. We also understood that it's an evolving discipline where compliance, convergence, and challenges and convenience have to be balanced very well, which was said by Dr. Rajendra Kumar. We also understood when Dr. Gulshan Rai very categorically pointed out that India took the lead by putting all these nuggets in IT law, which are now being utilized to ban Chinese apps and he was very confident that the time would come when new kind of laws would be designed with equal participation of citizens. So that's all from my side. I would like to thank all the panelists, even in absentia. Dr. Gulshan Rai, Dr. Rajendra Kumar, Dr. Lavneesh Channa. I would also like to thank my idea bouncer, Ms. Anushka Bilwar, who despite her other preoccupations with the foreign university, was able to rope in Advait. And Advait, you definitely brought in a whiff of fresh air by pointing out what was probably dormant in our minds, but you could kind of vocalize it. So that's all from this panel. And would the organizers or co-hosts like to add something to it? Anushka, do you want to add something to it?
I guess as for the adding, I would agree with Advait and Dr. Lavneesh Channa a lot for like how we bring in the multi dimensions into one blog. That's really required, especially when it's citizens' data, because citizens' data is at stake when you can't put it out just for the government or for the big tech to choose among themselves. Like, it's my data and I need to have that monopoly over me. And nobody can be the head. So you need to put in with the collaboration. You need to keep aside your egos and not be the head and not be the authoritative person. That's what it means with the democracy. The power is by the people, of the people, and for the people.
That's a wonderful idea.
My take on it.
Thanks a lot, Anushka.
Thank you so much all the panelists for having us.